With the latest in technology news and views, this is TechWrap, the podcast.
Welcome to TechWrap, the podcast for another week. We're online at techwrap.net. And this week, NBN Co proposing the idea of bandwidth limitations. SpaceX from the Tesla empire beams into its Starlink testing, which is the satellite service that we've all been waiting for. The Samsung president dies at 78, and they reckon electric vehicle pricing will balance out within the next 4 years. But we'll wait to see that one. Hello, Will.
Mr. Geddes, how are you this week? I know you're on a little bit of an adventure today. You must be having a nice little break from the big world.
Yeah, you could say that. We have been fortunate enough to, and by we, I mean my sister and I, we've been fortunate enough to get the opportunity to have a couple of days away and at an absolute steal. We noticed something on TV about Booking.com doing a little bit of a deal, and so it was something to do with board games, and essentially you had to pay the fee of the board game to get your accommodation. So for something that's worth, what is it? Did I see $700 normally?
For the
paid
price
less than
of
$100.
Snakes and Ladders or a Monopoly board. But
or in our case, it was Scrabble.
Yeah,
There's a bit of a theme going on there.
Not quite fully away from technology. You've managed to bring your microphone and your headphones and your laptop, enabling us to podcast for another week. So good to see you not fully escaped from the technology.
No, they said something about disconnect from technology, play some board games, and have fun in this wonderful
Don't let
place
them see this. Don't let them see this.
Nope, this isn't happening.
Well, quite an interesting week. You mentioned off the top there a little bit happening around the place. Lots to sort of jump into, some juicy topics. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start with the conversation from the NBN. So they've proposed publicly that they're looking to limit bandwidth consumption on certain connections. Now, at the moment, their plan is to look at the fixed wireless network, which is one of, I guess, the connectivity options that, is giving them the most of their troubles. You see, in Australia, NBN connectivity, you have fibre to the node, which is essentially a node box, little green box sitting, at the corner of your street or down the block somewhere. They connect to a number of customers. There is direct fibre running into those boxes to enable connectivity. There is a direct fibre option, which plows fibre straight into one's house.
Lucky
there's
few,
a fibre to the not us. Fibre to the curb is another option, which enables, houses to tap into fibre connectivity running past their household and only run copper that last section from the driveway up, which is another nice option. And they've also converted the hybrid coaxial fibre network, which was traditionally used by pay TV service providers in some cities.
HFC.
Into the NBN network as well, and that enables some pretty good speeds. And then you get to your rural connectivity options. If you can't get any of those, you get fixed wireless, which is basically like a 4G tower in your community. They usually service about a 10-kilometre radius around the tower site itself. In most cases, they're linked up by microwave links between sites. In some cases, this isn't the case. Some sites are directly linked via fibre as well. Usually they limit the number of customers that can be on these towers as well, so that everyone's getting a reasonable connection. But I guess the way that they've rolled out the network in the past, they have caused some issues with enabling people to have consistent connections. If you can't get any of these technologies, you end up on satellite. And satellite is heavy on the latency. It's okay on the download these days, but you wouldn't be able to comfortably sit there and watch Netflix 30 days of the month without running into some big issues with, your data packs and whatnot.
let
So,
alone in
but
4K.
oh no, no way,
And
no
correct
way.
me if
That
I'm
would that would
wrong,
not be comfortable at all.
in your current
Mm,
regional premises,
yes.
you're on fixed wireless, aren't you? Is that right? Or no?
Yeah, we are on fixed wireless because we're literally, if you talk about, I guess the traditional telephone lines that were run around town, we are about 3 kilometres from the CBD in terms of the cable length, which renders us ineligible for fibre to the node. I mean, we have a node which is around about a kilometre from us, but still, our speeds would be very slow if we went that way. So that then meant that we had to connect to fixed wireless. Now, Holbrook was a town back when Labor proposed that NBN would be a thing. It was going to be fibre connected. So, if it had gone down that avenue, we could have actually paid for the last mile and been fibered up, even though we, were a K from everybody else. That left us in a situation where, when they told us we were ineligible for fibre to the node, we then had to wait for fixed wireless. But there was a blessing in disguise in that because, many of the other towns were rolled out already with fixed wireless, and they did, your microwave networking between each tower with that setup. But being one of the last ones and being in an area where I guess they couldn't adequately link sites via microwave links, they went for full fibre. So our
Hmm.
fibre is directly linked to our next major town, and that does enable a very good connection. We get on average about 56 to 65 megabits down.
That's good. That was going to
The
be my
clincher,
question. What are your speeds? Yeah.
yeah,
The
the
clincher is
clincher is
upload.
the upload. Yes, the upload. The upload. So the upload will be anywhere from 4.5 megabytes to 5. That never used to be the case before the government made changes to fixed wireless because they wanted to make the download speeds look better in those areas where they had issues with the network.
Hmm.
They decided to, I guess, play Robin Hood. So they pulled upload and put it into the download just to make it all look better, even though it didn't really fix the fundamental problem because, you've got to upgrade your infrastructure to fix those sort of issues. They did it, and that meant areas like ours where we have a really good speed, like I used to get 18 megabits upload
Yeah,
on
nice.
fixed wireless, which is really something.
Yeah.
18 to 5. We were told that it was going to be 10, but no one has managed to get near 10 without some significant upgrades going on.
It beats
And,
zero point eight
I'm
on the old ADSL one. It was a
oh,
0.8
yeah.
megabits per second up, and it seems like not too long ago, actually. At least in the suburb I was living in Melbourne, just
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago, we were still on ADSL.
Well,
Not
even
one, sorry,
the fixed
two. We were
wireless.
on ADSL 2, but the upload was
Mm,
atrocious.
mm,
And yeah, and then the jump, of course, now I'm on a 140 plan and getting about 36 megabits per second up. But that's, I
mm.
mean, it's not the worst. Like you can do most things that you want to do on probably about
Yeah.
5. I imagine just if you're uploading large files to Google Drive or, a web host or any big uploads, as in, a single
Yeah.
file would take you ages. But if you're live streaming or broadcasting or, doing like a show like this, it should be sufficient, right? Do you ever find yourself hey, I'm not making a case that 5 megabits is fine by any means because it's terrible and there's definitely a lot of room for improvements and it's definitely capable of it by the very fact that you had 17. What
Mm, mm.
what are they proposing in terms of restriction? Like what?
So what NBN is looking at the moment, and they're basically pitching the idea to internet service providers. The conversation period is open until December, so a couple of months. They provided a PDF document, which is their development forum, workshopping ideas of making, I guess, bandwidth limitations to certain types of technologies. So they could say, certain types of VPNs will be regarded as something that, if there's enough of them going on, they're going to start limiting the bandwidth to these connections. The typical old gaming downloads and uploads, because they think gaming causes a lot of an impact, although it does in some cases. If you have a look at the saga that we've had with Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator in the last 4 or 5 months, there was some servers going down due to the high demand. So under this proposal, if it was to happen, they could limit these downloads quite intensely, during these peak periods, and they would slow it down to something like 3 to 5 megabits total, while the limitation is in place. But this is mainly in the peak periods. So like situations where you find yourself, after work, 6 till 10. That could be a time frame where you'd get some sort of limitation on your connectivity. They're also suggesting file sharing and ultra high definition video. They would limit the speed at which these could actually go through your connection if you are in an area where you're impacted by poor internet connectivity with these wireless towers because they've got too many customers on them, or even their microwave linking between towers could be in a bit of a pickle as well. So at the moment, it's just a proposal. Hopefully a lot of ISPs will say, well, if you have a look at what you've done in the past, NBN, with relation to fixed wireless, this is not ideal. And the ultimate thing you need to do is, look at network upgrades and, find that money pool to make wireless towers work. It's not all that hard. So they're inviting comments right up until December 3 at this point in time. And I'm really hoping there's providers, especially like Aussie Broadband and maybe even Launtel as well, who are, reasonable sized players in the game of quality service providers in Australia, because, there's a lot of companies people know, like iiNet and Internode, all the same company, of course, TPG as well, because they're all a part of the TPG group. People know these names, but you wouldn't put them in the basket of quality internet provider these days, given the number of assets they now have as a company and the reach they've got now.
Yeah, and I love that the fact it's because they have too many users and too much congestion. They're like, I know how we'll solve the problem is we're going to restrict everyone's bandwidth instead of actually upgrading the service. It's so hilarious.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it is a stupid move, and if they just taken a look at mobile phone providers, we've had mobile phones running 3G and 4G technologies in the last 10 years, and the same sort of situation happens with that as well. Big telcos don't invest the money into the tower infrastructure. It can be fast when it first comes out. Then your big bad mobile handsets come along that do the great speeds, and you get 100 people using these mobile phones, and it bogs it down, and everyone's going, you got to do something about that tower, and yeah, and nothing happens, and then 4G, 5G, 6G comes along, and then they roll that out instead. Yeah. So you've got all these people that have got phones that have inadequate internet connectivity, and it's the same sort of technology in fixed wireless, because it's essentially running on the same sort of frequencies. It's just more commercial equipment that they use, and they might use other bonding techniques as well. But fundamentally, it's all about making sure that the infrastructure is kept in order. so you don't find yourself in this pickle. So that's why I really hope. There was conversation a couple of months ago, thanks to the budget, that there'd be some money there for fixed wireless to get some sort of upgrades done, but we're still waiting to hear the full results to that. Maybe if they ran a few more fiber connections to towers, they could solve this. Because I know in my area, well, not in my area as such, because as we've discussed, I've got a really good connection, but just a hop, skip, and a jump in the next town. Colcan is a fine example. The fiber starts at Colcan, and then they microwave link to the town down the highway, which is Girodgery. Then they microwave link from there across to Jindera. So then you've got two other towns with a number of users milking it. And, there's only so much it can get.
Are they only taking consultation from the big players, the ISPs, or are they also going to listen to consumers' concerns as well?
I can only see at this point in time that it is internet service providers, although lobby groups may have a part to play in the conversation as well. Metro users wouldn't be aware of this organisation, but those of us in rural, regional areas, there's a group called Better Internet for Rural, Regional and Remote Australia, and these guys have been having conversations with the government, having conversations with the National Farmers Federation.
Bira?
Yeah, Bira or something. Yeah.
Bira. I can tell this is quite. Yeah, it's quite a passionate topic for you there, Geddes. Close to home.
Well, being regional, yes, it is quite a topic.
Would it be worth sending out an email to your provider? Is it Aussie Broadband, and just voicing your concerns and seeing if they're doing any advocacy on your behalf?
I think it'd be worth the conversation. I'd certainly follow it up, being an avid technology person and being a bit of a commentator, and the conversations that I've had in these groups as well, it just make me want to reach out to them and say, hey guys, you would be aware of this, but are you going to put the word in and say, this just isn't what we want? It's not going to work long term.
Because Aussie Broadband, this is a bit of tangential news, but did you see they're now listed on the Australian Stock Exchange?
Yes.
I think they Friday the 16th they were listed, and they opened up at $1.91, I believe, a share. I'm just looking at the graph now. It looks like they've gone up to the peak of $2.05, and now they've come down to about $1.83. So interesting times for Aussie Broadband, knowing that they now have kind of shareholder expectation and targets they need to meet, and then ASX requirements. So interesting times, I think, for Aussie Broadband. And I believe, you remember it was a few months ago, there was a little bit of a controversial rise in price to some of their plans by $10.
Yes.
And
mainly the larger,
I think clearly linked to the fact that now they're on the ASX, right? So they need to show a bit of profit incoming.
Well, yeah, you
they can't just be breaking even. You can't just go along breaking even, right? But then you have shareholders wanting to invest, and you're not growing as a company, so they're not going to get any value, and now you're beholden to them. So what I'm kind of getting at is they might be more, they might be more willing to listen to the voices of their customers, because it's now more important than ever for them to retain current customers and also bring on new market share. So I'm sure if you sent them an email with your concerns about fixed wireless, I'm sure they'd be happy to respond. And it's not just you, it's better for everyone, right? Across all regional users of the infrastructure.
And they have a number of customers who are on fixed wireless plans as well. They're one of the companies that really sort of pitches themselves as being, a provider that provides a quality fixed wireless service where they can, I guess. And maybe you're right with voicing your concerns, given the fact that all Aussie Broadband customers who had been with them for long enough, I think more than 6 months, had been given an option to buy shares at $1 a share.
Oh, really? Did
You had
you
to put
buy
in about
some?
no. You see, you
Why?
had to put in about $2,500.
Oh, worthy
Uh,
investment though. You would have doubled your money.
well, you could and you couldn't as well. It's the game of the share
I would
market.
have done it.
Share market's like gambling as well in some cases
Oh,
because you
educated
can
gambling.
yeah, well, yeah, but you can put your money on something and find it tanks, and then you haven't got your money.
Really? So
So
you got an email saying, "Hey, we're offering
yeah,
you." Was there a limit on that, or is it only 2,500?
it was a minimum, but
What was
given
the
the fact that
max?
given there was a number of customers that were likely to sign up, they didn't really specify how far you could go. People put in offers to buy shares, and then they'd accept or decline their offer. So they had like a company working on all of the applications that were made
Damn,
for the shares, and
damn.
they would yeah
I
they'd
was
give
looking
people the
at that.
opportunity.
I
So
was looking at that IPO actually, and they're great, and I think they're going to grow. They're only going to get stronger. So I totally would have
yes.
invested there. But if they don't, and if fixed wireless fails and you can't get NBN at your property, maybe there's another option coming in the coming years from our good mate,
Well,
our old
yeah.
pal.
Yes, Mr. Electric Jesus. Yes, we have been talking on and off about this for some time because he's just been lighting up people's eyes around the world with his ideas, and I guess a lot of people in Australia have been keen on the idea, given the fact that NBN. It gets a bit interesting in some places. We talk about the Starlink program, which is Mr. Tesla wanting to provide internet connectivity via satellite across the world, not just in America as well. He's
Ambitious.
invited people online. Yeah. He has invited people online in the last few months to sign up to beta test the product. And now the beta testing is starting to begin. Not here in Australia at this point, but they are offering for people over in the USA at least, the ability to purchase the Starlink ground equipment, which sets you back $499 US.
US.
And then you pay $99 monthly fees for your active service. And they say expect to see data speeds vary from 50 megabits to 150 megabits and latency from 20 to 40 milliseconds as they enhance the Starlink system, which for a satellite system is really not bad at all.
Yeah, not
You know,
bad.
the lowest scale of that speed is actually probably one of the highest scales of examples that I've seen with the current NBN satellite network. So that really says something. And they've got quite a number of satellites and infrastructure that they're launching, and they're not afraid to throw the money at it. So there's every potential if all the beta testing works and this gets rolled out large scale and they keep up on the upgrades, which is more than likely possible. This could be a really good proposition for some people in some areas because it is going to trump what is currently being done with the NBN network, and I applaud him in this sense. Last week I was questioning some of his merits, but this is a reasonable product.
It's always a roller coaster with Elon, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. You watch his activity on social media, and you realise how much of a roller coaster he is.
50 to 150 megabits per second is not bad. No mention of upload speeds as far as we can tell. So the jury's still out on that one.
No,
Yeah, as you said,
no,
20 to
but
40 is not bad latency in terms of like where do you see the biggest impacts in latency? It's any sort of real-time application.
mm,
Gaming comes to mind sort of immediately, like any first-person
stuff
shooter.
like we're doing now.
Call of Duty, make your frame rate, your FPS,
Mm, mm.
with your latency, like how quickly you're going to get that headshot over someone else. Yeah, the back and forth between you and me and talking and delays like that. I think for
Yes.
most people, latency isn't really a big issue, but if you're like a hardcore
Yeah.
gamer, this probably isn't for you. But at the same time, if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and you don't really have an option and you're just tethered to your 3G phone, this could be very attractive. It would be interesting to see how the beta test goes, and it'll be interesting to see if and when it comes to Australia, which I think there's indication that it might, given current emails they've been sending out to people.
Yeah.
The pricing, because $100 US a month is definitely sort of more on the high end, and that upfront cost of like 500 US, which is like 700 Australian dollars to get the kit. Yeah, look, I think people that are desperate probably will jump on board here, and I know it's going to be just absolutely fascinating. They're looking for, a lot bigger of a rollout in terms of coverage of the world in 2021. Very ambitious. I feel like that's probably more like most of America will jump on board 21, and then maybe 22, 23 we'll see some expansion into some other countries, potentially Australia. There's currently an app for the Starlink system on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. What do you call the Apple? Is it that's what it's called? The iTunes Store, Apple
App
Store, whatever it's called. And it's interesting because there's a few screenshots from it, and there's connect to Starlink. Check for obstruction to ensure your Starlink will have a clear view of the satellites. And then install your Starlink where there's nothing but blue sky inside the circle. And then the last one I like is actually it's got a cool little graph of it's like a compass. It has north, south, east, west, and it has some red bars all around the side which indicate obstruction. And then it says obstructed. Obstructions are blocking your internet connection 143 minutes each day. Which is interesting because like there's a bit of a typo here because it says 143 minutes each day. I think it's just minutes, but presumably like depending on the amount of satellites in the air and the position of your satellite, there could be an obstruction from a tree or something as the satellites maybe lower up against the horizon. And you're showing us something there. What's that?
Yeah, so I've got an application. This is a third-party one though. This is essentially saying if I was to be using Starlink in my current location, it will tell me timings with good visibility. So, 8:50 p.m. at night, 4:42 a.m. And these are different days. One's the 31st and one's the 1st. And then it says the timings with poor visibility, and it actually mentions, for the most part, if you're in a situation where you needed internet overnight, it could be an issue because currently with their satellite setup, I guess they don't get the adequate passes across Australia at those times of the morning. So they're talking like 4:57, 4:52, 4:47, 5:20 a.m.
So is that when you could experience potential dropouts or blackouts?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. And depending on where you have your satellite, there could be a moment in time where your internet just blacks out for half an hour till you're waiting for the next satellite to come into vision. So you'd be getting fast speeds, but you'd be timing your downloads. You'd be like, oh crap, quick, got to download this thing before the satellite comes over the tree. 5 tenths, you'd be racing against the satellites.
Oh, I lost it.
You'd be planning your day and your uploads and downloads and gaming sessions around satellite reception. Ultimately, it's going to get better as more satellites go up. But my question is, at what point are we going to continue our ground infrastructure improvements to the point where we no longer need this satellite system? Or do you think we'll always have a place for, like, there's always going to be someone that will take advantage of Starlink because they won't have access to fiber?
There's definitely always going to be a place for someone who uses satellite infrastructure because there's all sorts of necks of the woods where you just can't do any sort of connectivity, even if it is, wireless linking as well, because, it might be terrain, it might be distance. So there's always going to be a customer for a satellite service, regardless of, whether we think it's great or not. But having said that, as much as people have shot me down over previous years, fixed line technology is also a very good product when it's rolled out effectively as well, and things like fiber networks are great when the right infrastructure rollout has been done, and it pays off in dividends because once you've laid it properly, unless someone goes and digs it up somewhere along the way, it's going to go for a few years. And if you think about, I guess, how long copper in the ground has lasted in Australia and the different things that we've been able to do with it that they didn't even dream of when they first put the last scrap of copper in. It just proves as bad a tech it is now, it was something then, and they've been able to continue to evolve it into something. So it just proves, next technology along, get that one right, and that can be the next version of copper and could almost last, 50, 60 years like copper has.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting and very exciting to see the developments with Starlink. So if Starlink became available and you got the email saying, hey, if you want to jump on board, you can order the kit, it's going to be this much a month. Would you swap over, or are you pretty happy with your current fixed wireless? Like, it seems like a bit of a gamble, right? You
Tech head that
personally.
I am. Yeah, being an avid tech head that I am, I would probably go down the avenue of I'd buy it to test it, really get into it,
Maybe we could
and see
reach out to Tesla
whether
and
it's
see if
worthwhile.
they'll send us a kit out and we'll review it on the podcast and socials. Maybe they'll send you
We
one
could give
out.
that a go. We could give that a go.
Why not? We talk about
It's
him
always
enough.
worth a shot, isn't
We
it?
give him enough free promotion on this bloody podcast, don't we? It's like every week we're talking about Elon or Tesla.
We'll link the media department to every edition we've
Oh,
talked
they've
about
scrapped that.
Tesla.
Remember, they've scrapped their media PR department. They don't have anyone now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We have to
yeah.
tweet at him directly. He's calling the
Oh
shots.
jeez.
I'm probably sure
he
there'll
calls
be
it
more Elon news in the coming weeks, as always.
Yes, we'll continue to talk Elon news. Bit of a sad story from Samsung.
Oh no! Don't go to a sad one.
Oh well,
go for it. As long as we end on a happy.
Point.
As long as we end on a happy note. You got to bring it.
We
You got to
can
bring
end
it
on a
back in the
sweet
end.
note.
Okay, good. Well, we got quick heads, so quick heads always happy.
Yeah. Well,
who doesn't love a bit
you
of
got
quick
to end
head?
on a light note. You've got to end on a light note, I tell you.
Give us the sad news.
The president of Samsung has actually passed away, Lee Kun-hee. He died just a few days ago at age of 78, surrounded by his relatives. They haven't actually specified the causes of the death, but he's had a patchy, health balance in recent years. Back in 2014, according to news sources from CNN, he had been in a coma after suffering a heart attack, and he had his son, Lee Jae-yong, act as the de facto leader of the organization at that point in time. He was considered one of the richest men in South Korea, of course, given a company like Samsung.
Yeah.
And, being known to have a lot of insight into what goes into his products. So he had some significant push in what the company was doing for quite a while. He's also found himself in legal issues as well in the past. In the 90s, he was accused of bribery in 2008.
Is this the son or the guy that died?
No, Lee Kun-hee. So bribery in the 90s and tax evasion in the 2000s as well.
Oh, we've all not accounted that pen we bought from Officeworks on our tax return.
The headphones.
Yeah. Quite a number of
Yeah.
what are his most positive achievements, and what does he leave us with? What legacies?
Well, if you have a look at Samsung products, you know, they are main players in TV technology. They're TV panels. They're one of the big factories that churn them out for all sorts of brands. Them and LG as well. They seem to be at the pivotal point of development for LCD, LED, QHD panels. The mobile phones as well. Imagine, what the Android marketplace would look like if Samsung hadn't been in there with their Galaxy product. Just like Apple, they have had quite a significant contribution to, turning people to the Android platform and making people look at different varieties of handsets and even I suppose the old phablets, the notes.
Yeah.
If the notes hadn't come about, other manufacturers wouldn't have considered the idea of making a phone to that size. So I think they're two huge ones for the brand. They make a lot of white goods. They've had some trouble with some white goods as well.
Mm.
They had to run here in Australia with some faulty washing machines and a rather dubious patch-up program to try and fix them as well. But when you look at TVs, when you look at mobile phones, when you've looked at DVD players, when we were using more of that sort of stuff, we're streaming now though. Um, Samsung was one of the big brands that people turned to. So he's left a bit of a legacy
All
in
thanks to
what
this
they've been
guy.
able to accomplish.
All thanks
Yeah,
to this guy. Samsung have done so well, so much so that it's not even seen as Apple versus Android.
yeah,
The operating system or the platform almost is Samsung. It's like when people say, "Do you have a Kleenex?" and they mean a tissue, but
yeah,
Kleenex is the brand and tissue is the Android operating system. So much so where, people are like, "Oh, what's your phone?" If I just said, "Oh, my phone runs an Android, it's an Android phone," they
yeah.
just glaze over and not know what you mean. And then if you said, "Oh, it's a Samsung," they'll go, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know, Samsung." Because
Mm,
it is
mm.
so much so Samsung versus Apple. I've always found that interesting, and it's just grown as Samsung has become more of a mega brand and held more and more
Mm,
market
mm.
share every year. That knowledge of even the Android operating system is almost non-existent aside from all the techies out there, where the majority of people wouldn't even know what Android is. It's just, oh, it's a Samsung phone. And I remember back
Yeah.
in the early days when we were in the office, we used to talk a lot more about
Mm, mm.
Apple versus Android specifically, and then would talk about maybe some brand phones. But now it is
Yeah.
like Apple versus Samsung, and then everything else other people are doing are compared to Samsung, and
Mm,
Android
mm.
doesn't really even get a mention aside from when you're talking about the Google Pixel series. And even then, it's like promoted as the Google phone. So I don't know. Do we need Android promotion, or are we just happy to have that go in the background and let the manufacturers like Samsung just do their own thing with their own phones, put their own skin on it, and make it their own? Are we happy just to tack along as Android backend and not really worry about front end user interface?
Well, I think given the way that everything is built and supported, it's one of those things where the brands themselves really have to pump up what they're doing and maybe even the operating system that they're using as well. Because without that, people don't realize what is there unless they're really nerdy like us, for instance.
Hey, speak for
Like you
yourself.
like you said, people know Samsung phones. Of course, given I've got Huawei, I get the old, oh, Chinese are watching you, and it's
Yeah,
like,
you're reading
yeah,
all your text messages.
if you really understood, but they have one of the best selling watches at the moment as well. Anyway, that's another topic for another Huawei. I ended that one on a bad note, didn't I?
Yeah, where's the happy story now? Can I just say before you jump into that, a little nice little bit of Booking.com advertising there behind you. Other side.
Yeah, they've got a lot of it. Yeah.
Stop putting that down. We're not paying for this.
and this one as well. This one as well. Scrabble.
Oh, that's cool. Are you gonna put that one in the old suitcase?
No, you can't, because if you do, the people who own this property are checking on this stuff, and they say that don't take it because the other people need to enjoy it. But there's some other little things around here. Let's just go for a side note because we're in somewhere different right now.
Yeah, this is very exciting. So if you are listening to the podcast, jump over to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, the videos.
TechWrap on YouTube, and you can see us, beautiful faces, talking live during the podcast. And you'll be also taking on this wonderful tour of Trent's current impromptu studio. Yeah,
so I'm on a laptop, so it's really crappy. But if I turn this around,
there's my broadcaster that we're recording the podcast on, and a game of Scrabble. Look at that. And Scrabble mugs. And up in the background, there's a Scrabble. Is it like artwork? Like,
Yep. There's Scrabble letters.
That's cool. This whole place is Scrabble themed, and there's like an eye test back there to test your vision.
Yeah. and I mean, you might find yourself where you want to walk away with something, and they have actually catered for us as well. Over here,
a little studio set up there. We've got a couple of lights on Trent. He really came prepared for the podcast. Stay on the wall there in Scrabble letters. I believe that's 4, 5, 6, 7 points for stay. And a bunch of other games over there.
Underneath them are a set of games and a drink bottle.
Can you keep the drink bottle?
It actually says you can continue to have the fun at home. Please take this with you. And there's a copy of Pictionary. There's
you can take all of that?
Scrabble.
Are you kidding?
We can take some of that with us. Yes.
That is bloody brilliant.
There is an original edition of Scrabble. There is a Harry Potter edition of Scrabble. There's a game of Pictionary. There's a kids' version of Uno. There's one called Pick Flip there as well. And then there's another little kids' board game behind there as well, a notebook and a drink bottle. And they're pretty much like, yeah, take it with you. Continue the fun.
What a great deal. I'm so happy for you that you can get away and take your mind off things and relax and play some games. Brought to you by our sponsors, not really, Booking.com. Oh no, I think you've muted yourself or something. You shouldn't have moved the laptop. You've screwed it all up. It's all come unplugged. Disaster has struck. Can no longer hear Trent. There we go. He's back. That's what happens. You never move the equipment mid-broadcast.
No, you don't, because you break your equipment. Or if you're doing a live cross on the road, you break your link back to the studio, and then people are just
once you get it working, don't move, don't touch anything. Well, there's our happy story at the end.
Nice little time away. The sort of thing that you see it on TV. It says, there's only going to be a limited amount of opportunities. You might get an opportunity. Go online. You'll need these details, and you go online as soon as they've mentioned it. It wasn't up, so I forgot about it for about 2 hours. Then I went back, and it was there, and there was actually two bookings there that were still available. And it's been my sister's birthday just a couple of days ago, so I literally said, "We can get away for your birthday."
Nice.
So
love it when everything works out.
And it was perfect. So and had a nice little time away. We're up in the Blue Mountains, so we've been able to drive around and have a look at all of the region, the beautiful mountains and and enjoy some of the great food and beverages that are out there. I took her for a wonderful lunch and had a really nice view there. So it's been really good.
Yeah, that's
You just have to get away sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although you've been in a situation where you haven't been able to get away, unfortunately, due to COVID, but that's now easing now as well.
Yeah, things are looking up for Victoria as we slowly get back to business. Cafes and restaurants and pubs, a bit of a soft open now. We still limited to 25-kilometre radius, but come, I believe, November 8th, they'll be reducing those restrictions, and Victoria and Melbourne and Metro and Regional will all be Victoria again, and with limitations on gatherings and booking ahead and QR code scanning and logging your every movement, all that sort of stuff. But hopefully a lot of businesses can get back to normal and get back out there and start rebuilding the economy.
Absolutely, and speaking from an area where we've got all those QR codes and the distance, limitations inside of venues and whatnot. People are getting on with things. It feels a bit interesting that you've got to, open your mobile phone and scan a QR code, or write on the piece of paper and write your details in, and people take your name and your mobile number, but it's freedom. So you do it because it's a small price to pay. And if people are following the systems correctly, they're only holding the details for a couple of weeks and for the sake of potentially contact tracing. And if nothing happens, well, but you've had your freedom. You've been able to enjoy the things that you enjoyed doing before we all got locked up for a brief period of time and couldn't leave our homes and couldn't do anything.
Yeah, in a couple of our podcast episodes, we can talk about the COVID Safe app and everything about it. We'll save that for later because it's a bit controversial.
Absolutely. One more item before we get into the old quick heads. And it's a happy one in terms of if you are looking to start investing in EV, electric vehicles.
Lithium.
As we know,
a lot of people were getting hot for lithium, especially leading up to Tesla's battery day. A lot of excitement in terms of renewable energy and resources and battery tech, and a lot of lithium excitement. But got some not related to lithium.
Not quite related to lithium, but with I guess, the updates that Tesla provided, they are really providing, a battleground for development in battery technology. And it's moving forth to the point that companies can start looking at reducing the cost of, ownership of these vehicles. And we are getting told that it's looking like we might reach a price parity within about the next 4 years. With your standard traditional vehicles, your petrol-powered vehicles. This was a study done by investment bank UBS, and they reckon the price per kilowatt hour of making battery packs will reach the level where it's a lot more on parity with a petrol vehicle within the next 3 to 4 years. 2025 will be a fantastic time. They reckon it would be, a time where you can look at both vehicles and go, well, that one's a lot better for the environment. I can go down that avenue. I can invest in that one. And, I really look forward to it. 2022, they reckon we're going to have that balance in the price of kilowatt hour of making batteries. But of course, that still does leave a few more years for everything to balance out with overall pricing between petrol-powered and electric vehicles. Right now, if I had a job, I'd still be on the fence with whether I'd be picking an electric vehicle because they're still a reasonable amount of money. Like
so expensive.
A solid electric vehicle, like not Tesla. Like I've been looking at the Hyundai versions.
I don't look at anything but Tesla. I only have my blinders on. It's Tesla or nothing.
Hyundai have got some really good options,
Yeah.
but you're still looking at 60 grand for one of those. And the last car that I purchased and just recently paid off was only about 25 grand.
Yeah, it's
And
quite
so
significant.
that took a bit of time for me to do as a guy working in radio, and people think you make lots of money because you work in the media, but it's
Don't
the
you
other
know
way
Kyle and
around.
Jackie O?
I would love to know those people. Oh, well, I'd love to make the money of those people, but
Yeah.
I didn't get there. But that's all right. Got my eyes on IT now. But yeah, we could expect a balance in the next 4 years, and I think that's absolutely fabulous because by the time we reach the 4 year mark, brands like Volkswagen, and Audi and Toyota, they'll all have their EV equivalents at a point where they're in the market and potentially being a challenger to the likes of Tesla, Hyundai as well, and Mitsubishi even as well. Mitsubishi's been playing at it for a little while. They're a little bit of a quiet achiever because the technology that they've been working on is good. But they've had some ordinary moments with some of their vehicles in terms of battery life, and I guess also where they're priced and what they are. But as an example, they are the only manufacturer that's doing a four-wheel drive version of an electric vehicle currently, not out here in Australia, but they are accessible internationally. And Hyundai, of course, is also in there as well with a few larger vehicles that they're offering, and Tesla's getting there as well. Tesla's got a couple of models, but it's good news for anyone who was thinking about investing in electric vehicles. Meanwhile, something more for the naysayers to play on. Like there's diesel repair companies that like to pick the hell out of electric vehicles, so
Yeah,
they'll
right.
have something else to drive on.
Yeah, and I guess you just have to wait for the when Tesla release their super cheap version, right? When they're toting a $30,000 or $35,000 car
Yes.
in the US. So hey, when that comes around, maybe you can look at a Tesla instead of the
Well, yeah,
Hyundais and things like that. But I think we're a good 3 years away. But I think it'll give you 3
yeah.
years to start saving up for your Tesla. Just on
Oh,
that,
yeah. I can start chipping away on that little Roundup account on my little up.
Yeah, every time you buy some bread, you round up some 10 cents into the Tesla account. $3.90, round up to $4 to Tesla, creating new goal there. But just on the Tesla news, and I was going to save this as a quick headline, but it ties in nicely to talking as we're talking about sort of electric vehicles and Tesla. Tesla are officially starting to roll out the full self-driving beta test. So they've always been making improvements to the self-driving or the auto-driving,
Yes.
whatever you want to call it. And now apparently they're calling it a quantum leap, fundamental architectural rewrite, just not an incremental tweak. So it's a whole new overhaul of the self-driving feature. So it allows the car to see sort of not only kind of in this 2D space around the car, or 3D space around the car, but I don't know what they're calling it, like 4D or something, 5D or 10D. But it not only takes in all the sensor data from around the car, but it will also take into account the speed of the vehicle, upcoming intersections, traffic lights, does it need to indicate, turning plus indicating. It's pretty funny because I'm not sure he wrote this, but Elon Musk was talking about his build in his Tesla and the version of autopilot he runs on, and his quote was, "I drive the bleeding edge alpha build in my car personally, almost at zero intervention between home and work." So I don't know if I'd run an alpha build and completely trust my car to not crash or run off the road, but he's doing it. He's doing it fine. He doesn't care. So apparently a huge leap for the self-driving feature of the Teslas. So we're one step closer to being able to just jump in your car half asleep and push a big button that says work and then nod back off to sleep and wake up and you're parked in your car space and off you go to work.
or push that big button when you're on one of those long journeys and not need to
Yeah.
worry about what speed
Yeah,
you're
like a
going
freeway
and
that's just
steering.
one,
And
like the Hume Freeway, which is 3 hours of straight road. You can just push your destination, and that would be a lot. I think a lot of people, if they can get the tech right and get it working, I think it'll be a godsend for fatalities, because the amount of people that drive with fatigue and tired and they push on and then they have an accident. If everyone had this, I think that's obviously where his goal is at. We wouldn't see those types of fatigue based crashes. Would only see crashes if the software malfunctions or if somebody hacks it, all these kind of Mr. Robot Black Mirror episode scenarios. But I think it's a step in the right direction. As someone who's always been very excited with the autopilot Tesla stuff, it's really cool. You'll pay for it though. You'll be probably looking at another 8,000 or so. God knows when they roll this one out. $8,000 to $10,000 on top of your car for your autopilot on top of the vehicle. So yeah, $80,000 or $100,000. I mean, if you're paying that much, what's 10 grand? But if you're paying 30 grand for the car and then they're charging you 8 grand for the autopilot, it seems like a lot more all of a sudden. It's almost a third of the cost of the car itself just for the autopilot. So interesting times. It has its place, and I think it's a big part of Tesla. And which is why I'd love to get a Tesla over some of these other models, just because of the advancements in the tech in terms of the autopilot space is bar none. And I don't see any other electric vehicle company even coming close to what they have achieved and will achieve. So that's a big selling point for not only Tesla, but for me personally over the Hyundais. I think that pretty much sums up the major headlines of the week. Deep dive into the topics that we found the most interesting for the week, and we hope you also have found interesting us sort of discussing and unpacking it further. There are, of course, countless other little headlines that pop up during the week that are little sound bites where the news is essentially in the headline and it doesn't really go too much deeper than that. There's not really a lot to unpack. It's just like, yeah, okay, that's interesting or mildly interesting, but it essentially is the headline. So we like to quickly go through those, and it's a little segment we call Quick Headlines of the Week.
We do.
These are the quick headlines. These are the quick technology headlines of the week. Geddes, give me some quick headlines. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. One day we'll get sick of
every time
yapping. But here we go. Quick headlines. Trump's campaign website hacked by cryptocurrency scammers. Did you see this?
I did not see that, but I think that is amusing.
So it was only a small period of time, and when you go to his campaign website, it will come up and say, this website has been seized by the FBI. We've accumulated all this documents based on Trump and the family, and if you guys get to decide if we release it or not. And to cast your vote, send your Bitcoin to this address if you'd like us to send it out to everyone. Send your Bitcoin to this address if you don't want us to send out all the information. We'll tally all the amounts at the end of the day, and whichever one has the most will do. So essentially, they had Bitcoin wallet addresses there, and they're just trying to get people to send them some Bitcoin, hoping to get some juicy Trump details. So that's pretty funny. Trump's also had
someone would have sent.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Money as well.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. He's also had his Twitter hacked over the years, and few other bits and pieces, but I think most politicians have been probably hacked at one point or another, or targeted.
If you're controversial enough, you will always get hacked regardless. And if you're controversial enough, Twitter will also flag that you are an illegitimate type on occasions based on the conversations you have. And Trump has had all of that.
And great. A lot of Twitter accounts got hacked at a certain point with the Bitcoin scam and all that sort of stuff. But there it is. That was the headline. Zoom.
There you go.
The now world famous video conferencing app launches end-to-end encryption for free meetings. So before weren't encrypted. Now they're offering end-to-end encryption.
And some people would have thought that was already in existence in one form or another, or would have thought that, they might need the requirement for this sort of product as well, but it's available now.
The interesting thing
And
with
there's
that
still three
is
options.
no one can listen into your conversation, and they turn off a lot of features like the ability to record and a few other transcription sort of things or bits and pieces just to try and make it a bit more secure. But
Yeah.
just because somebody can't get in and listen to your meeting doesn't mean that other person you're meeting with isn't like screen recording the meeting and the audio and then releases it out to the public, right? So just because something is end-to-end
Yeah.
encrypted, you still have to trust that other person you're having the conversation with that is also going to keep that confidential. Like, you know what I mean?
Most
Like,
definitely. And the other thing you have to do with these sort of video conferencing applications is you have to ensure that you've locked down the meeting in some way as well. People use a lobby room option so that they can, I guess, accept the people that they want in the conversation rather than just having random pundits show up and cause hell, which has happened as well, right in the middle of all this COVID fun.
yeah, that's a bit of comedy. Uber and Lyft. We haven't spoken about Uber in a while, but they've lost an appeal, I believe, in the US, and they've been ordered to classify drivers as employees as opposed to contractors, which I believe that's how they operate in Australia. If you want to drive
They
for
do.
Uber, you have to have your own Australian business number. You have to be registered for GST. And essentially you have to manage that as your own business. You have to report your GST and all that sort of stuff.
And in the state of New South Wales, you have to be registered as a rideshare driver as well, which is, I guess, another class of registration with the Service New South Wales.
So they're attempting to take a lot of liability off themselves by putting the onus on the drivers. But any sane person looks at this type of arrangement. You're clearly working for Uber 8 hours a day as their driver. So, I mean, that's how it's looking like in the US. If that passes there, expect to see possibly some litigation in Australia about the same sort of issue. So we'll keep an eye on that one to see how that unfolds. If it becomes a bit more interesting when it's about our home country and Australians, but also always interesting to keep on where the world is at. We talked about a little bit about this last week, working from home and the amount of companies jumping on board saying that we're going to full remote working.
Yes.
Indefinitely and into the future. Reddit has joined that list, saying that they will allow employees to work from anywhere going forward. I assume they're going to adjust salaries based on location and all that stuff that happens there. So just another big US tech company jumping onto the remote working bandwagon this week.
And it makes perfect sense to some companies to be able to jump on this. If all they're doing is working online and they're doing a lot of their time in front of a computer and they can find the alternate measures to be able to meet together. Why not give it a shot? I mean, that reduces the amount of money they're spending on leasing properties. In the case of some of the large-scale organisations, they can downscale the number of levels that they have in their tenancy as well. And quality of life balance, if they make sure they put in the measures of, these are your working hours or these are the tasks that you've got to do each day. And, as long as you've got them done, you've got the ability to go out and have a run for half an hour in the middle of the day or just have your random food breaks, long as all the work is happening. It does provide a payoff for some people who are happy to move forward with, what they've found as a new normal during the period of COVID. And it adds its other benefits as well. I can see this, working for certain companies here in Australia as well, given, the large scale of the country and the areas that they're supporting as well. So let's use all these companies as test cases of, what we could be doing in the future.
Yeah, why not? And a couple of we love to talk about them, and there was a time where we talked about them quite a lot. They've dropped off our radar a little bit, of course, referring to drones.
Oh, yes.
We love a good
it's been a little while since we talked about drones.
It seemed like back
like
in the
flying a
day, it
drone.
was every week it was a new drone story coming out. But
The drone was the Tesla.
Yeah, it's good to see now some drone headlines coming back into play this week, and we got a couple of ones right here. So we got Amazon tribes are using drones to document and photograph the forestation from above.
Yeah, that's smart.
So in Brazil, Amazon tribes use drones for the protection of land, and seeing deforestation and saying, look, this is what it is now. And then if anyone tries to say otherwise, they have the footage. So they can just send up a drone into the air and record that evidence for themselves. So that's a great drone story right there. The one I want to end on here is I think you'll really like this one. It's a drone, and there's a company that's manufactured a drone for a specific purpose, and that purpose is fruit picking.
Well, there's something
fruit picking drone company raising 20 million to begin manufacturing, and it's an Israeli agricultural drone manufacturer. And I'll send you the picture for this after, and we'll put it up on socials. But it's this, a drone, and they're equipped with a 1 meter long mechanical claw, and they pick the fruit with the claw, and or it can be used for thinning or pruning tasks in orchids.
Wow.
So it's this big kind of this square drone with 4 propellers and this giant claw that just comes out,
big arm.
I assume identifies and grabs an apple and then drops it off somewhere. So I love to see like just a huge swarm of drones descending upon an orchid and just grabbing all these apples and then sending them back. So that's pretty funny. Surely it can't. I don't see how that works smoothly at all. Like, I'd love to see a demo. And how often would they need to recharge the batteries? Like, you're better off just getting old mate Stu from the UK on his backpacking, working visa to pick your apples instead of deal with these. And the propeller goes out, or a bird attacks it, or the claw breaks, or the apple falls. Like, it's cool and it's hilarious, but like,
to look after it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I want to see it in action, so I'm going to try and track down a video. And if we find a video, we will put that out on socials. But that's it. That's quick headlines for the week.
Wow! What a one to end on. Like, you just could not fathom the scale of drones that would be required to make a standard orchard work. It just, it's a neat idea. It could work for small scale farms, but something that large, it'd just be like, nah. Like that would cost the farmer more than he ever has to pay in like 2 or 3 years worth of getting old lackeys who have come across from the UK or the US or France or whatever to just jump in the paddocks and spend half a day sweating it out to make $25 an hour and to fill their buckets of fruit. Like,
next week it'll be a drone developed to get you a beer out of the fridge.
Well, that could be handy. That one could be really handy. I'll be on that one. I'll invest in that one. Oh, man. Well, that wraps up Tech Wrap for another Tech Week.
You got that beer out of the fridge early, Geddes.
I think I could just go for that beer now, so much. We are online at techwrap.net. You can email us, mail@techwrap.net. We're on the socials as well. You can find TechWrap Australia on Facebook. We do some Instagramming. There's some videos up there sometimes as well. And you can find your podcast in all the great places as well. It's been kind of cool to do an edition out on the road.
Yeah,
I happened to be by a major landmark, and I was speed testing on my mobile phone, and I thought, if I'd have had more thought on this, we could have almost had like the Blue Mountains in the backdrop.
Yeah, I was almost hoping that you were going to be on a deck or something with the Blue Mountains in the background. You've kind of set the precedent now, because we've had you out to the back with a nice pool in the background. And now we've got you at like this really fancy Airbnb in the Blue Mountains. So I think there's going to be viewer expectation for you to come up with a really cool location every week to record the podcast.
I've got some ideas up my sleeve now. We've talked about this. It only took me like 30 seconds to start thinking about it, but
The possibilities
there's
are
places we
endless.
can go. Although the one I'm thinking of, I would need to have a wind block because the wind could be quite nasty for this one.
That's always something to
But
take into consideration. What, are you going to do it out of an
give
air? You're
it a
going to
go.
jump out of an aeroplane and do the podcast?
No, not that drastic. A big landmark.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep you in suspense.
I'll keep playing with my ideas. That's TechWrap for another week.
With the latest in technology news and views, this is TechWrap, the podcast.